Well, hello everyone, wherever and whenever you're viewing this video, welcome. Glad to see you all. And I am in the furnace room that's on the west side of the basement under the sanctuary. And this is where the heating and the air conditioning for the west side of the sanctuary and the fellowship hall, air conditioning and heating, is located. What you're looking at behind me on the wall here, according to some of the furnace men that had worked here in this facility, this probably at some point was a coal chute. The way that they were able to get coal into the basement to feed the old coal furnace. You know, and having been in that business for several years, I've talked to lots of people, especially people in churches, where there have always been times in the way back when coal bins and coal chutes were a bit of a problem, because unless you put a lock on the door, people could actually get into the church through the coal chute. And during the wintertime, when people were looking for a place to keep warm, many times that was the way that they got access to the church. When I happened to get by here the other day checking on a noise, I noticed this, and that's what made me think about all that. But I also ran across the scripture that Paul is talking to young Timothy, a young pastor, about being careful about people getting into the church, and not to keep warm during the winter, but causing spiritual problems. And so let me read that advice that Paul gave to Timothy. It's found in his second letter to Timothy, the 3rd chapter, the 1st through the 6th verse. But realize this, that in the last days difficult times will come. For men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, revilers, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, irreconcilable, malicious gossips without self-control, brutal, haters of good, treacherous, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding to a form of godliness, although they have denied its power, and avoid such as men as these. For among them are those who enter into the households and captivate harmless women, weighed down with sins, led on by various impulses. Now, what led me to thinking about coal chutes and people getting into the church was that word enter into the household. It's our condensate pump getting rid of some water. The term entered into the household is one of those interesting Greek words, and you know how much I love Greek words. And dino is the second part of that word. It can mean power and strength, but in this particular case, it has a different meaning. It really is talking about the setting of the sun. And if you stop to think about the setting of the sun isn't just there one minute and gone the next. It kind of slowly goes down. So this word creeping in or entering into households is that very term, creeping. You maybe have heard the term worm their way in. And so that's what Paul is warning Timothy about, that we have to be careful, especially in, he says, these last days, for these kind of people worming their way in. So my first thought was, what are we going to do about that? You know, we don't want to exclude people, but at the same time, we need to be careful about who we let in the church. But I came across a verse that says, the love of God assuages all. Now, at first that gave me a little bit of comfort, because I thought I knew what assuages meant, but I wasn't sure. So, of course, I went to my handy dictionary and I looked it up. And it's a word that comes to us from the Latin. It means to soothe, but it can also mean to tranquilize. Now, I wasn't too happy with that term. I didn't want to suggest that people go on tranquilizers. So I looked it up, and the word tranquilize means to be free from any disturbance. You know, and it's times like these where I believe we really need to lean heavily into the love of God. You know, despite what's happening in your life or around us, God continues to love us. And just as this little quote says, The love of God comforts us in all situations. The love of God can actually soothe us and take away the causes of all of these disturbances. Wouldn't it be great to be so soothed that you're free of disturbance? Well, you can be that way by leaning into the everlasting arms, the love of God. God bless you.